and welcome to Rain Francis Art. My name is Rain. Today is a little bit of an art therapy day. I just wanted to do a loose painting and just play with colors and draw something bright and cheerful like flowers and grass. I hope that you join along with me, so let's begin. This is what you'll need for today's painting. I'm using Strathmore watercolor paper. It's cold press and it's 140 pounds. You'll also need some watercolors. This is what I'm using. This is a brand that I always use. It's my favorite pan of watercolor paints. The colors are so vibrant. The brand I believe is called Pretty Excellent. I got it off Amazon, so I don't really know much about it, but I think if you looked up Pretty Excellent, you could find it. And just a little tip, whenever you get some new paints, always do a swatch. That way you can see what the colors look like on your page. And today I'm going to be sticking with greens and yellows and oranges, maybe some red, I'm not sure, and possibly some purple. And just a little note, my neighbor is building a cottage on his land, and you might hear some banging or some hammering or some drilling. It can't be helped, unfortunately. You're also going to need some masking tape so that you can tape off your watercolor page, or if you have it in a pad, you might just want to use the pad and not pull the piece of paper out to tape it down. You're also going to need paintbrushes. I have mostly round brushes, but I'm using, let me move this out of the way. I'm using 5 today. I believe I'll use all of these. I've got just a flat brush. It's a really, really old flat brush that has been well used. It's not very flat anymore because I use it like this, like that. So it's really kind of a rough edged flat brush. I've got this big round brush. This is my favorite one. I do not know what size it is. I'm so sorry because I've used it so much that the writing has all worn off, but it's a big round brush. I also have 2 other round brushes. One is a size 4, one is a size 2. And I've got this amazingly fantastic liner brush, just to show you. Once it gets wet, it's like using a fine tip ink pen. It's great. I also have this watercolor palette that I'm going to be using. And I've got, you know, a couple of dishes of water, some paper towel, and I think that's it. I will also be using acrylic paints for this painting to do splatter at the end. This is optional, but I think it gives it a nice little touch. So I used just regular tube acrylic paint, titanium white, lemon yellow, cerulean blue, and vermilion orange. You can use any colors that you want. But if you have acrylic paints, they make the best splatter. I just want to share a little tip with you. If you're using masking tape to tape down your canvas, don't push it down with your finger, you know, because you might actually feel like it's burning your fingers. So whenever I frame my canvases, I always use an old rag and I push it down with the old rag. That way it's not going to burn my fingers. That's just a little tip that I learned the hard way. It actually hurt. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a little grassy background. And for that, I'm using my large round brush, and I'm going to use a mix of greens. I don't suggest you do this on top of your canvas, but I'm doing it on top of my canvas so that you can see what I'm doing. So let me move this. I'm just going to get some water into all of my little compartments here. Okay, and I've got this sort of a lime green here. It's almost a yellow green, and I'm going to put some on my palette. It actually looks kind of fluorescent here under these bright lights, but it's really not that fluorescent. Okay, so now I think the other green, this is why, let me show you, this is why the palette comes in handy. You see? I think I want some of that green too. This is quite light here, but I'm going to put some of that green on and the very dark green here. At one point I knew what each color was, but I've kind of lost my list, so I just go by what I see. I don't know the exact colors, what the names are. All right, now I'm going to go into that very dark green here, which is probably hunter green or hooker green. Okay, so I've got my greens all ready. Let me move my paints. And I got a little bit of water there. I'm just gonna blot that a little bit. That's why I don't do this over your canvas. This is purely to show you what I'm doing. All right. I still have some of that green on my brush, so I'm just gonna go in and paint something on the bottom down here. I'm just filling it in. This is all going to be sort of the underpainting, as they call it. Just wetting my brush and bringing all of that green that was already on my brush onto the canvas. And I'm going right up to the edge of the masking tape. So I'm wetting my brush and I'm going to start with the lightest green that I have, and I'm just going to put little bits in everywhere. And I'm going over that line a little bit because I don't want to have a very harsh line. All right, now into the second green that I chose. Again, just kind of blotting it everywhere. Okay, now I'm going to go into that darker green with some more water on my brush. I'm going to go down to the bottom. And I'm really just dabbing. All right. So now what I'm doing is I'm just wiping off my brush, dabbing it a little so there's not too much water, and again I'm softening up that line up there. I'm pressing not too hard, but there is pressure, definitely. And I just want to show you something. You see these little dots here? That's the paper. Strathmore, I think I said Strathmore. I may have said Canson by mistake. I'm using Strathmore watercolor paper. It's okay, but the paper does fall apart sometimes. It's not the best quality, but you know what? This is kind of a study. I'm sort of teaching myself how to become a more loose watercolor painter. So maybe I was just pressing a little too hard. We all learn as we go, right? We're not born with any of this knowledge. So what I'm going to do is go into that lightest green that I have and just fill in a little bit of the spots that I may have pulled out by adding water. And you know what? I'm going to leave those little pieces of paper on there. Maybe I can call that texture. That's a good cheat, eh? Oh yeah, I meant to do that. That's texture. Or as Bob Ross would say, happy little accidents. All right, going into that dark again, just filling in where I see I missed. I want it to be darker at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to come back and put in a little bit of detail. Normally I would just do something else on the page while this is drying, but this is really the underpainting, so I have to make sure that this is dry before I proceed. My canvas is now completely dry, and what I did was I took an old paintbrush that I use just for this purpose and I got rid of those pieces of paper. I decided I'm not going to have texture after all. Also, I hope that the first part of this video wasn't too bright. I changed the settings on my camera, so I hope that's a little better so that you can see the colors, because I thought it was a little washed out before. I can never get the lighting right. So now we're going to go ahead and put on a second layer on here. And I still have some of my greens, and I'm basically just going to go and do the same thing. I may have to add some more of that light green to my palette here. And again, don't do this over your painting, please. I'm only doing it so I can show you what I'm doing. Okay, I've just added some more green to my palette. I'm going to make sure that my brush is clean, but that there is water on it. I'm just rolling it around on my paper towel here, but it is wet, and I'm going to start with that, might need more water there, with that light green color, and basically going over the same thing, just dabbing. And feel free to go above the grass line. And what happened just there, sometimes this happens, you see there's little dots that fly up, little dots of paint that fly up off of my paintbrush. So that's when you see me going a little higher up. All right. And I'm only putting that light yellow green on the top. Now I'm going to go for that mid-tone green here. It's still a pretty light green, but compared to the other one, it's a bit of a mid-tone. When your watercolor is absolutely dry, you can put many layers on, and you're not going to remove what you've already put on underneath, as long as you don't linger too long. Okay, now I'm going into that darker green color and doing the same thing. I'm filling the entire canvas with a second layer. I may have to add some more of that dark color to my palette. Watercolor does go a long way though. I'm going to try to get away with just putting it in here. No, I am going to have to add some more, so I'm just going to take some of that darker color and put it on my palette. That's quite dark. I'm going to lighten that up a little bit. Oh yeah, that's nice and dark. Adding some more water. There we go. Just making sure I have it all over. All right. I'm just rinsing off my brush here. Whenever I'm doing something off camera, I'll definitely let you know. Okay. Now, I was talking before about this ratty old brush that I have. It's what I used to use, or mostly used for acrylics. It's very rough right now because I said I use it like this. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to get it wet, but not too wet. I'm going to wipe it off a little bit And I'm going to dab it into that dark green, and I'm just going to put little bits of green, dark green, up into that area. Just like that. And I'm going to use that same brush, but I'm going to wipe it off, and I'm going to just wisp it up a little bit, because I don't want it to show like little dots, you know. I want it to sort of blend in well, because it's the illusion of grass. I'm not going to paint in every blade. And I'm going over the dark area as well, and I'm just lifting it up a bit so it blends a little better, because this is still the underpainting for me. Okay, so I'm going to leave that to dry. There is a little trick you can use to dry it faster. I'm not a fan of it. I do it sometimes. When I'm doing videos, I do it so it doesn't make the video too long. Take a hair dryer, but make sure it's on the cold setting. So I'm going to do that right now. I've got my hair dryer, and I'm going to dry it. Okay, so I cheated a little. But it does make things go a little quicker. Sometimes you just don't feel like, you know, waiting around for your paint to dry. All right, so now I've got, what am I going to use now? I'm going to use my number 2 round brush. And I'm going to take some of that the same dark green that I put down here. I'm going to put a little bit more on my palette, and I'm doing that off camera, because I certainly don't want any of that dark green to fall onto my canvas now. But you can see I put quite a bit here. And I'm going to water that down. I don't want too much on my brush. And I'm just going to go in and put the illusion of some grass. Very few wisps here and there. Just like that. Just, you know, not everywhere. And what you can do also is, if you find it's a bit too stark, you can wet your brush and pull some of that paint off. You're just softening it a little bit. See, it's giving the illusion of grass without you having to go in and paint every blade. And when it's darker down here, you don't have to put as many blades in. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that throughout. And I'm going to have patches where I don't put any. And again, wetting my brush and softening them up now and then. I don't want to lose the shape. I don't want to lose that shape of grass, but I don't want straight lines all over my painting. Okay? Continuing to do that. I'm wetting my brush, softening. And sometimes you'll see there are, like this area here, it sort of became one little clump of grass. That happens. But nothing in nature is perfect, right? All right. this is a good study for me because I'm used to drawing. And when you draw, at least unless it's abstract, you need to be somewhat precise in what you're doing. So that sort of turned me into a slight perfectionist when I've been painting, and I don't want to be that way with all of my painting because I want to have, you know, a loose style too. It doesn't have to be realism when you're painting, especially watercolors. Watercolors are great for doing abstract or just what they call loose paintings. Not especially realistic, but you still get the idea of what you're looking at. You know that what you're looking at is a field or a mountain or grass or flowers. Do you know what I mean? All right, I'm going to soften all those up. That little hair dryer trick is pretty good, isn't it? It's funny, now I have 2 hair dryers. I have one dedicated just for my watercolors. I don't know, I'm not crazy about using it because I kind of like things drying naturally, but I'll take a little help where I can get it once in a while. All right, now I'm going to have to take a look at this and see if I want to add more. I think I do. I want to add some more here, some more dark areas here. And my canvas is wet, so I don't have to go in and soften it. And maybe some here too. And I'm going to put in just hints of it on the bottom. Those I'm going to soften though. There, I think I'm going to leave it like that. Sorry, I don't think my canvas was straight. There we go. All right, I'm going to clean off my brush. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the flowers. So I'm going to choose that mid-tone green that I called the mid-tone because that was the really light one and that was the really dark one. So I'm going with the mid-tone one, and just off camera here I'm going to add a bunch of it to my palette because that's going to be the color of my stems and my leaves. Okay, so I'm going to take that fabulous liner brush, which doesn't look too fabulous right now, but once it's wet, it really comes to a nice fine tip. So let me go in and fill my liner brush with that mid-tone green. Might be a little too wet. I'm going to add just a little bit more pigment there. You can hear my neighbors knocking and hammering. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in. This is going to be hard for me because I can't really move my canvas because I want you guys to be able to see everything. And I have to make sure this is dry because I may lean my hand on it. So if I have a shaky hand, you'll have to forgive me. I'm putting in some stems. See how nice that liner brush is? I'm just dipping on the side here, I'm dipping in to that mid color again, that mid tone again. And I'm going to do this randomly across the page. And once in a while I'm going to do a larger stem, and I'm pressing a little harder so that the stem is a little more thick. Because we're doing two types of flowers today. Another thick one here. And then back to the little thin squiggly ones with lots of stems and branches on them. I hope you can see that because these are quite light. You can make as many stems and branches as you like. We're going to fill these all up with beautiful shades of yellow, orange petals. And these thick ones, these are going to be blue flowers. So once in a while, I'm making them a little taller, and I'm pressing harder on my liner brush here because that stem is going to be a little more thick. And we're going to make them 2 at a time here. 2 there, 2 here, and then one more little yellow fella. I say yellow fella because I already know these are going to be yellow flowers. I'm having a flower here, so I'm going to be careful not to put any of those branches or stems there. Okay. So I'm just going to wash off my liner brush here. Just a little tip too, every time you wet your brush and you're not going to use it, wash it off and don't leave it lying there. Shape it, and if you can, stand it up. I'll show you, hopefully this will be in focus. This is one of my water dishes. It's got holes in there, so I can stand my brushes up when I'm not using them. I've put all of my stems and I guess little branches out, and they dried very quickly, so I can start my flowers right away. I'm going to start with my blue flowers, and the blue flowers are going to be on these larger stems here. So there's going to be 4 blue flowers, and I'm starting with those because I'm doing multiple layers for these flowers. Okay, so I want you to choose a color that you like. I'm choosing blues. You don't have to make them blue, but I'm choosing blue because I think it's very pretty. I'm going to choose this blue here, which is this one under that orange. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of that blue onto my palette, just on the side here. And I am going to put quite a bit on it, because I will be coming back and doing a couple of layers of the same color. Okay, you see, I've put a bunch of blue in my palette here, and I'm going to wet my brush. This is my number 4 round brush, and I'm going to show you how I do the blue flowers. I don't want it to be too wet. So all this is pretty dry, so I'm going like this. I'm just laying it down, laying it down, laying it down, just like that. This would be easier if I could move my canvas, but I can't. Okay, so that's all there is to it. Just lay it down. You can make them larger if you have a larger round brush. If you run out of paint, go ahead and put some more on your brush. All right. So I'm going to do that again. I roll the whole brush around into the paint. That way I can turn the brush as I go. I think blues and greens look really nice together. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just enjoy yourself. This is a study, and a study means that you're practicing. I don't do too many flowers, but I'm trying to do a lot more painting. Not that I don't want to draw anymore, but I'm trying to, you know, be a little more diverse with my artistic creations. There we go. These are starting to dry already, but we're just going to leave them for now. I'm going to wash my brush off, wipe it, and I'm going to shape it and stick it in the brush holder here. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, let me see. I'm going to use my number 2 brush. I want a very small tip on the brush. Now let me just make sure this is nice and clean. Make sure there's no green on it at all, because green and yellow will turn into a muddy, yucky brown color. I don't want a muddy, yucky brown color. So for this reason, this is why I have a couple of dishes of water. I have one side of my water tray here that I haven't used yet, and that I'm going to use just for yellows and oranges. The other side already has green in it, and I'm using it to wipe off, to rinse off my blue also. So what I'm going to do for these flowers here is I'm going to choose 3 colors. I'm going to choose bright yellow. I'm going to choose this yellow orange, and I think this darker orange here. So off camera, I am just going to put some on my palette. Actually, I don't have much room here. There is some green that splashed into these two, and I'll probably be using those. I want to take that out right away, just in case I put some other color in there that does not blend well with green. Okay, they're all clean. Splashes happen. Okay, so like I said, off camera, I'm just going to fill 3 of my little spots there with those yellows and oranges. Well, let me start with the yellow. Since I've got the yellow on my brush, I'm going to start with the yellow. I don't want too much water on this. And it's all dry here, so I can rest my hand on it. All I'm doing is doing this. A little, almost like you're making a leaf. And I'm only using the tip. There may be a little too much water, so I'm going to add some more pigment, because I really want this yellow to stand out. This is really nice to do. Now this is going to be tough for me because I have to kind of twist my hand the other way, so I'm going to try to do it this way and hope that it looks okay. Yeah, I think it's going to be okay on this side if I do it this way. And I want to get those petals all the way down the stem, all the way down like that. Okay, and I'm going to do that for every one of them. The reason why you don't want it to be too wet is because you want it to keep the shape of the petal. If you feel that your mixture is too wet, do what I'm doing and just add more pigment. And your petals don't have to touch the stem, by the way. We're supposed to be doing a loose watercolor here, so I have to remember this does not require perfection. This is not realism. Loose watercolor. I'm going to go just a little quicker here. So far, so good. When I paint, sometimes I don't choose my color palette before I start. I just go for it. But I have found that it's not such a bad idea to choose your palette, because then you'll know what colors go well together. You see, when I was practicing this before I started to film, and I had this really, I could show you actually, I had this really sort of almost a phthalo green, I guess, and it's just, it didn't go with the grass, you know. I was practicing different kinds. Obviously, I didn't like that one. I was practicing different kinds of flowers. This is a nice one too with the purples. Purple would go well with this too. So I just wanted to show you, you know, if you want to fly by the seat of your pants and choose your colors as you go, go ahead. But sometimes they just don't look good together, or they look a little out of place. So that's why I went with the more yellow greens for the grass and for the stems and the branches here. It's funny, for a long time I change my style of art quite often as time goes by. Sometimes I focus only on portraits. For a long time there I was doing a lot of celebrity portraits with charcoal and ink and graphite. And then I started doing a lot of Looney Tunes shorts with markers. And now I'm starting to do a lot of painting. And I haven't done any portraits for a long time. Done a few animals, realism, you know, realistic animals. One that's really cool and that I was so proud of, and I'll put a link for that one, is how to draw a little piglet with charcoal on white paper, so black charcoal, and it turned out so well. I was so proud of myself. I saw a drawing online. Someone had done something like that, and I thought, I can try to do that too. And it turned out really well. And it's a tutorial now on a real-time tutorial on my Rain Francis art page. It's funny because I used to be such a shy girl. I really was as a teenager. Oh, I was shy. Couldn't talk to boys. I would get all red in the face. Very, very shy. Didn't want to share anything publicly. But I find that doing videos is a lot of fun. I really enjoy it a lot. I'm very comfortable in front of the camera. I'm just adding a little bit more pigment and water to my yellow, just so I don't run out. And as some of you already know, I also have, well, I have a few YouTube channels. I kind of went a bit nutty with the YouTube channels. I have one called Rain Francis Art for Kids, and I do kid-friendly real-time tutorials, and I like to say for kids of all ages, because if you want to learn how to draw, there's nothing wrong with going to a kids art channel. We all have to start somewhere. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback from that. I'll put all the links below to the stuff I'm talking about. And just this summer, this is, I'm filming this in May of 2022. Just this summer I started a channel called Rain's Kitchen and Garden, where I share my gardening and baking and cheese making and anything homesteady and homemaking. That one's new. I think I just started it this month, and I'm having so much fun with that one. It's mostly gardening videos right now because it is spring. But I plan on making some really nice cooking videos soon. And cheese making. I make my own cheese. Oh, almost out of the yellow here, but I think I have enough left. Like I said, watercolor does go a long way. Oh, that one was a little big. All right, that's great. The yellow is done. I'm just going to rinse off my brush, wipe it down, and shape it. Now, back to my number 4 brush, because we're going to put another layer of blue. We're going to do the exact same thing. Another layer of blue, because it is dry right now. But I'm going in between those first petals. And I have quite a bit of water on my brush, so the petals are just a little bit lighter, which is fine. That's kind of what I was hoping for. See, I'm just tapping. From the point down. Gotta check my camera. I use my phone to do these recordings, and for some silly reason it stops the recording after anywhere from 27 to 30 something minutes, and if I don't pay attention to that, I could be talking and talking, and then the camera decides to stop, and you'll miss, you know, maybe a minute of what I'm saying. So after this blue flower, I'm going to check that. Oops. There we go. Okay, I will pause this for a moment. So as the blue is drying, we're going to actually start with some of that. This one here, this yellow-orange color. So again, off camera, I'm just going to put some of that onto my palette using my number 2 round brush, by the way. Right, just let me get this all ready here. Okay, so I've got this nice yellow-orange color, and again, I don't want too much on my brush, and I'm going to see how that looks. I'm going to put a petal right next to each yellow. Doesn't matter if it's on top or beside it. And like I said, it doesn't have to be attached. It can be floating in the air next to it. It's still going to look really pretty. I want to make sure that I have some of that orange yellow next to each yellow petal, that is. And it's interesting, maybe it's just my lights, but my yellow, the initial yellow, kind of looks a little greenish to me. Might just be the lighting here. I have a fourth YouTube channel that it's really just for fun. I do a lot of, I'm a spiritual person, and, you know, I'm a nature lover. I believe in the universe taking care of us, you know. Nature child. So I talk about stuff like that, and I like to read tarot cards and oracle decks, and I find that I get a lot of insight with things like that. I don't use them for any kind of, you know, what do you call it, fortune telling or things like that. I don't believe in fortune telling, but or, you know, reading into the future, like, am I going to win the lottery this week? I don't really believe in that, but I believe in self-therapy and self-help, self-development, trying to live your best life. And I try to spread that word a little bit on my Spiritual Rain channel. And I do a little fun little kitchen magic stuff, like I'll tell you what the magical properties of, say, basil is, and what you can do with basil to have a little fun and put some magic into your life. But that channel, it's not that I've neglected it, but it's just really for myself and for fun, you know. So this channel is more for, I don't know, educational purposes. This is for fun too. I mean, I really enjoy it, but I put a lot more effort into the videos for my art and now for my kitchen and garden. Oh, I have to be careful. I just got some blue on me here, so that flower is not dry yet. I have to be careful not to smudge that. Keep an eye on that when you're going in and doing your other flowers. Now, I can't tell you, I'm lifting up my hand to remind me not to touch that blue flower. I cannot tell you what type of flower this is, or the blue one. I think I just kind of made those up. But I love all the color. These are all kind of, they all complement each other. This is so relaxing. I'm almost whispering because it's so relaxing. Even though it looks like I do have shaky hands. I always have shaky hands, and I don't even drink coffee. I don't have much caffeine in my life. I used to. Oh my gosh, when I was working, I think I drank like 12 cups of coffee a day. I say when I was working because my friends know this. I suffered a work burnout many years ago, and it was pretty severe. I have lasting side effects from that, and that I struggle with on a daily basis. But you know what? Art is part of my therapy. I've found ways to manage the symptoms so that they don't stop me from living. And that's really important, you know. You have to have the will and the motivation to feel better when nothing seems to be, you know, working and helping you. Because I was burnout, you know, it can cause a lot of anxiety and depression, which I go through. And I was on pretty heavy medication for many years, and nothing was helping. I actually was feeling worse and worse and worse, and it got really bad at one point, and I decided either I'm going to live or I'm not going to live. So I chose to live. Thank you. Thank you, Rain, for making that decision. And I decided to get off the meds and find a more natural way to take care of my symptoms. My doctor didn't want me to do that, but I had to do it because I wasn't living any kind of life all, you know, drugged up on pharmaceuticals like that. And I'm not bashing them. I know that they help some people, but they did not help me. Like I said, they kind of made me worse. It took me about 10 years to start feeling better after burning out. And I'm lucky I'm on a disability pension now. And I can really take care of myself and make sure that I'm living a good life, you know, despite the obstacles and the hurdles. And art is a big part of that. Big part of making me feel good and relaxed. Okay, so we've got all that nice yellowy orange. My blue is dry. Can you guess what we're going to do now? No, we're not going to put on another layer of the blue. I think it looks pretty nice the way it is, but I want to put something in the middle of that blue. I'm trying to figure out, because I did have an orange in there when I was playing around before. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So we'll do that after, because I would like to start putting on the darker orange. This darker orange here, I'm going to put some of that into my palette off camera here. I'm putting quite a bit because I want to use it in the middle of my blue flower, and I want to make sure that blue is absolutely dry before I put any orange into it. Okay, so I've got plenty of pigment there. And again, just going around and doing the same thing. Some of the orange, the yellowy orange, isn't dry, so I'm going to be careful. If it starts to bleed into each other, I'm going to stop and wait for it to dry. But I'm just going to put random little petals all around this plant here, or this flower. I would love to see if you follow any of my art lessons. I'm on Instagram. Everything is in the description and on my About page. I'd love to see if you've done these. Please tag me. It's very rewarding when you see that someone has followed your lessons and that they love what they did. And I've had comments telling me that it's very easy to follow. And someone even said my voice is a little hypnotic. I thought that was funny. Okay. I'm going to go in right now and just dab a little bit of orange into the middle of that flower. Just a little bit there. There. And I'm going to continue on and do these little flowers here. My dog Jack is snoring. I wanted to be out in the garden today because I have some seedlings that I need to transplant outside, but there's supposed to be a frost advisory going on. There's no way I'm putting my seedlings out if there's any danger of frost. So they're just going to stay in the window for another day. I managed to plant potatoes and raspberry bushes for the first time. Well, not potatoes for the first time. The raspberry bushes were the first for me. And all of my asparagus is blossoming, and I've already harvested, geez, I don't know how many sprigs, maybe a couple of dozen. Asparagus is amazing, but you have to be patient. You plant it year one and don't touch it when it starts to pop up. Year two, same thing, you don't touch it. It's so tempting though. You see those asparaguses fly up and you want to just grab them and eat them. But no, you have to wait because they have to develop a good root system. And then year 3, which is this year for me, you can harvest maybe a third of them, and then you have to let the others go to seed. And next year, though, I'm going to be harvesting a lot of asparagus at this time of year. We'll see if I can... There we go. I'm going to have to add some more, I think. Yeah, I'm going to have to add some more of that orange color. I'm doing that off camera. Okay, I added a little more orange onto my palette, and I'm just going to finish off these fictional flowers that I made. That hammer going. Well, it's not too bad today. I mean, last week they had a big cement truck come by and pour the foundation of the house, so that was really loud. Big trucks driving by. I think it's 2 guys are building the house by themselves. I wish I had those skills. All right. I'm pretty happy with that. They kind of almost look like cactus. I'm just going to put a few on the top of each one. Like I said, this is supposed to be just for fun, you know? I'm not looking for realism here. I'm just trying to practice taking my time and putting some nice colors together. Oops, I made a mistake there. Doesn't matter. Right? Actually, that looks nice. I'm going to make these a little more solid. All right. I'm thinking of doing something here, and I'm taking a chance. I'm going to put a little more of that dark orange color on my palette, and I'm going to add some water. I don't want too much on here, and I'm going to just see what it looks like if I put a little orange down the middle instead of that green. I may regret it, but I think it actually looks a little nicer. Sort of fills it in a little bit. And there's me with my little perfectionist drawing side. Have to fill everything in, Rain. But I do think it looks a little nicer like that. Maybe looks more like a flower bush than a cactus. But who cares, right? This is for fun. We're just having fun and relaxing today. Art therapy. All right. Okay. I think that looks okay. Just going to rinse off my brush. And what shall we do next? I think we're going to do leaves on these stems here. I'm going to take my larger number 4 brush, the round brush, and I still have some of that color here. It's still quite wet, so I'm going to put some of that color onto my brush, not too much water, and I'm going to make leaves. Okay, just like that. Load up the brush again, and I have to move myself over to do this from this side because it's hard for me. Okay, while I'm moved over here, I'll do this side too. There we go. They're kind of like sunflowers, but blue. Well, I've decided I wanted to add a little bit of splatter to the grass area. I've taken some acrylic paint, it's titanium white, and I've put it in my palette, and I've filled it with some water so that it's quite liquid. And I'm going to show you how to do this. I have my number 4 brush here, and I got it all over my fingers. I'm just filling up my brush, but not too much, because you don't want big glops of paint. And then I'm just taking a pencil or a pen or something, and I'm just going like this. And I'll fill up my brush once in a while. And the reason I'm using acrylic is because I find that white watercolor paint for this purpose isn't a solid enough color. It's too transparent. And you have to play around with, you know, how hard you're going to hit your brush to get the effect you want. Okay. I don't know if you can see that, but it gives a little illusion of maybe some pollen in the air. Okay, I've made another executive decision. I'm going to put some splatter into the background here. I've got some more acrylic paint. I've got lemon yellow and cerulean blue. So I'm going to start with the lemon yellow, and I've got my palette here. I took a new palette because my other one's full. And I'm just going to put some of that lemon yellow, just a little blob of lemon yellow there. And I'm going to use the same brush I used for the white, and I'm just going to add a bunch of water to it. I'm doing this off camera. I want it to be nice and liquid. I mean, not too liquidy, because then you won't see it, but nice and liquidy. That's pretty liquidy. So I've loaded up my brush, and I'm going to tap it a few times as I turn it, because I don't want huge glops of paint falling off. And I'm going to do the same thing, just all over the top. Let's see if that works. Okay, that's looking okay. And if it gets on the grass, that's okay. I'm going to load up my brush again. I'll put it here so maybe you can see it. Loading up my brush, and I'm really tapping a lot of it off because I did get a big blob there. So, and don't kid yourself, you might get this all over you. I can feel it hitting my hand and my sleeve here. Maybe I'll lift up my sleeve. Filling up my brush again. And oh, I got a big glop there. Let me just get rid of that right away. That's too bad. I'll take a wet brush. Maybe try to get that off. It's wet. It happens. Well, that's okay. I have a little yellow spot there. No big deal. This is all for fun. All right. All right. I'm going to keep going. That looks nice. I think that looks really pretty. I am going to turn the camera off for a bit because that has to dry before I decided I'm going to do the same thing with the blue. I'm going to do a little blue splatter as well, so that needs to dry before I start with the blue, or else it's all going to sort of mush itself together. Just off camera, I decided to put a little bit more of the white onto the grass because I feel like it kind of gives the impression of small wildflowers. I just got splashed right in the face. I think that looks really kind of nice. Very nice. Little, you know, pockets of wildflowers here and there. Nice. Yeah, definitely you get splashed in the face. I'm going to go crazy here, and I'm going to try with the yellow on the grass as well and see. Oh, nice. Yep. That's looking nice. Okay, I don't want to overdo it on the splatter there. Now, my yellow splatter up there is still a little bit wet, so I'm going to have to wait for that to dry before I do the blue. Well, my yellow is still kind of wet, but I'm going to go ahead and start with the blue anyway. As you can see here, I mixed up the cerulean blue with some water to make sure it was nice and watery. I really don't want to get this all over me, but I'm going to put a little blue in the grass and see what happens. Oh, that looks kind of nice. Yeah, little pockets of wildflowers here and there. That's nice. I'm going to do that all over my page. Why not just make it all splattery all over? All right, I'm having fun here. I'm thinking of something else too. Let me just grab my paints. Starting to feel like I want to be a little more creative here. I didn't mention at the beginning that you would need acrylic paints for this lesson. I'm sorry about that. I should have mentioned that. I didn't think I was going to do all this though. I've got a nice bright red. This is vermilion red. Could be vermilion orange. I'm going to do the same thing. This though I'm going to try to keep, yeah, it's vermilion orange I think. I'm going to keep it in the grassy area to give the illusion of more wildflowers. So let me get some water into there. Doing that off camera. I'm just using my brush to scoop in some clear water. And I want it to be nice, and that might be a little too liquidy. I want it to be sort of like glue, you know, the white glue consistency, maybe a little less. Okay. Let's see. Oh, yes. You could do a whole painting with just splatter. It's so much fun. I'm going to try to keep that just on the grass, though. I'm turning my my brush as I go, by the way. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I'm getting away. I'm getting out of control here with the splatter. So that's my painting. I think that was a lot of fun, and it felt really good and relaxing. I'm just going to pull off that masking tape. Look at me, I've got the splatter all over my hands. Let me fix that. There we go. We've got a nice framed painting now. There it is. I don't sign my paintings usually in the front. I sign them in the back, but this is still wet, so I can't sign it yet. But don't forget to sign your painting. Take ownership of your beautiful work of art. I hope that you enjoyed this little art therapy painting day today. It wasn't really a lesson. It was just painting for fun and to relax and to just enjoy being in the moment. I really hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and I can't wait to read your comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Rain Francis Art. Bye!